Jessica, I'm gonna read that.
Okay. Hello, people.
Hi,
Well,
Shay.
it's a little dark here. I'm getting some rain where I am. Anybody else in the chat getting rain?
Yes, sir. The rain is followed by puppy sex.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It will help to kind of cool down the place a little bit. That's always good.
You put it louder?
Yeah, what was that? All right. So, we're doing a little kind of a infill class today. By the way, is Zoom doing a good job of clearing up the raindrops? Can you hear it?
No.
All right, that's good. That's good. That's good. All right, so we're doing a little infill class today.
Sir, turn down your background music a bit.
Oh, hold on, let me pause that. Right. That's interesting because I can barely hear. All I hear is rain. But then, it's Zoom is toning down the rain to the point where you're hearing the background music where I'm not even hearing that. Anyway, technology is good. Okay, so you hearing me okay now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, what we're going to do today is um, we need to go through just some little reshuffling of the schedule, and I have some great some tips. Remember last week we started with this with the advanced visualization tips, so we're going to continue on those tips, right? Um, I don't envision that it will take the entire class, and as per usual, I'll make the video available at the end. Yeah, Joe, you have a question?
Yes, sir. I noticed that my perspective wasn't so I'm not sure if it is accepted.
Hang on a sec. I'm gonna have to use my headset because my background is loud. Yes, say again.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm not sure if my selection was accepted because I didn't see any tick. So
Oh, right. Okay, no problem. I'll be looking on those today. And while I am looking on those, you guys will be looking on some more advanced visualization tips. Now, speaking of that, I want to go to the website just to kind of look at the schedule because I want to move some stuff around. All right. Now, let's go to CSA. Well, I hope I don't get much wind because if I get a lot of wind, then I'm going to have to come off my porch and go inside, and that's no fun because it's gonna be quite hot inside. All right, so wow, are you guys still hearing me?
You must click the first one.
And then nobody need a password. I'm never going to somebody come off it.
Wow, you didn't think to ask?
I thought I was asking, I just put like mother.
Okay, be away, man.
Go on, mute yourself.
Yes. Yes, guys, we have to remember to mute in this world of online. All right. And let me just switch my audio where I can hear it. See. Okay. All right. Somebody talk. Let me see if I can hear you guys now. Anybody?
Bingo.
Okay, good. I can hear you better. All right. So we were just about to look on the schedule. So let's go over to student and let's go over to computing and advanced computing 1. All right. Now, according to our initial schedule, we can see that we kind of zoom in a bit more to make it easier to understand. There you go. Major language. Right. So that would make the presentations happen on the 13th. Not the 13th, sorry. On the... Why doesn't the date show here? I guess it can't fit. It's in the line below. Alright, hold on. Let me check the... I'm going to check it on my worksheet. Give me 1 second. There we go. Let's see, 1 timeline. There we go. All right, so we have right, so it's on the 14th that we had the original time, which would have been Wednesday. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this presentation back, and then instead use this week to kind of focus on feeding you guys some advanced visualization tips that will help you out. I think you need a little bit more time just to kind of absorb the different ways in which you can manipulate the software. I was wondering myself when I was creating this schedule, but I rather to do that because in kind of reviewing some of the notes and based on the experience last year, some of the feedback was that you guys needed a little bit more time to experiment. So what we're doing this time around is that I'm going to be giving you some of the top architectural advanced visualization tips, and it's up to you. They may apply to your mimic or they may not, but I'm sure that the concept will apply to most of your mimics in some way or another, right? So I'm hoping that we can get through those lectures during this week. We'll do some today, and then we will do some on Wednesday. And then the following week, is when we will do the in-class presentation. Everybody got that?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. So instead of, so what I'm doing is like grouping up all of the class activity at the beginning, rather than kind of rush you guys to push out your presentation from now, right? And well, this timeline might look a little confusing, but it's actually linked to the timeline on your website. So these two dates, hold on, let me change that ink. This would be the presentation for the plans, and this would be the presentation for the section. And then we have another kind of break after that. So what I'm going to do is move this break up here and kind of push everything else down. So that way we can spend the beginning part of the course kind of experimenting a bit more. All right, so that is just the announcement that I wanted to make. But we still keep in the schedule because we want to be finished with assignment 1 by the time we get to Heroes Day. That's our objective. Because everything below Heroes Day would be related to the measured survey, right? So we have our site visits and measured survey stuff, and all of that is happening in the latter part of the course. So we want to take care of this major project from the beginning. Yeah, Jessica.
Sir, just realizing, and I wanted to make sure that I got it right, is that when we push the lecture to the following week, like this week, and push down the other assignments, that means we will have both floor plan section and the visual language presentation back to back?
I may insert another space between there, but for right now, that would happen. But remember that sometimes using the word presentation is a little tricky. It is a presentation, but I would more think of it as kind of a hybrid between a descript and a presentation.
It's not marked on site, it's marked after submission.
Remember, what is marked is the process by which you use to achieve what you show. The final mimic, as in the final interpretation of the technique, will not be marked at that presentation, right? That's going to be marked at pretty much the middle of the semester. So, which is why I'm encouraging you guys to come out and present your mimic, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not done, because we're not marking the perfection part of it. Let's put it that way. We're marking the processing part of it. And right. And just a quick reminder, remember, please remember that the handout is there in case you don't remember any a particular question. Remember, what we're showing is we want to show the workflow, which is kind of like a step-by-step. Remember, we did that in the last class of how did I achieve this thing? And then you would show the mimic, the original, and then your interpretation of that mimic. And all of this you would put on your mirror board and you would submit the mirror board link. All right. Okay, and then when we meet, we will discuss all of that. Now, and this is something that I've realized after doing this course for a while, that as most of the earlier part in the module, you can really get to. We really want to use that and show you some examples of some interesting visualization works and the workflow of how they were achieved. So we want to do that on Wednesday. But today we're going to start looking at some tips. So hopefully we can get through most of it. All right. And while we go through this, I'm going to be looking on the board, right, to make sure everybody mimics is up to date. Most of my computing classes are kind of a hybrid. So, you know, sometimes I would pre-record stuff from before and then mix that in with live action. So we're going to be doing a little bit of that. So where I want to start with you guys is on layering and blending techniques. And remember, most of these are not tutorials on how to use Photoshop, InDesign, 3D Max, SketchUp. What they are they're kind of illustrating to you different approaches that is primarily used in architectural visualizations. So don't worry, I'm here, and if there is something in particular that you believe applies to your mimic, just need to tap me, and we will go through it together. All right. I'm gonna switch back to speaker because Doreen has stopped. There we go. All right. Now the first one we're going to look on is going to be layer blending in Photoshop. So in exploring advanced architectural visualizations, our conversation will start primarily with layering and editing. Some of the primary tools that we're going to use are going to have to do with editing images and editing vector lines. So let's start in those two locations. So right here I have a file open in Photoshop, and I also have a file that is in Illustrator. Now this is not going to be an Illustrator or Photoshop tutorial in terms of using the programs. Instead, what we're going to do is to kind of understand the concept of a few important concepts. I would call them advanced concepts. So the first concept that we want to look on is layering and masking, and just getting an idea of what that means in these two modes of editing, right? So first, let's look at what that means for editing pixels, right? So as we know, Photoshop is a raster editing or pixel editing application. And what I have here is a rendering. It's an image. And, well, this image has been rendered from a 3D program. And of course, these are pixels. And if I zoom all the way in, you can see where you see the pixels, the individual pixels that make up this image. All right. Now the basic concept of how a layer works, we probably know this already. If you have something that is on top of a particular layer, then that will show on top. So for example, we can see here that we see here that we see where we have a layer here, and if we have a layer on top, which is that layer, then it will show on top. So in case in this particular case, it's a sky. So this sky layer is on top of this render layer. Very simple concept. But that is the fundamental concept that we will be looking on for advanced techniques. Now, it's the very same thing when we look at the vector editing program. So in this case, we're going to look at Illustrator. And if I maximize that and look in my layers panel, we can see the very same thing. We can see where we have the base layer here, and then on top of that we have the sky layer. So if I turn on the sky layer, then it's going to be on top because the sky layer is on top of the render layer. Same concept. Now the layering especially starts to get interesting when you start to talk about cutting layers out. So for example, it's very popular in architecture that we would have a particular layer. For example, it could be the layer of a silhouette or a person, and usually either we would try to get a transparent image or we would try to cut the image out, and we would do that maybe using the lasso tool to actually go around and cut out this shape. Now, the more advanced way to use this method of layering is beginning to use what we call layer blending overlays, right? And that is where we find these options here. Now, layer blending is a little like layer opacity, except the transparency of the pixels are based on an algorithm. So for example, I could select this person silhouette layer, which is right here, and I have that layer now selected. I could increase the opacity of this layer by changing the opacity value here. And if I do that, you can see where the image gets slightly transparent. Now, that is all fine and dandy if that's the intention, but the intention is for an image like this, we would want to cut it out. So the other more advanced way of looking at doing this kind of opacity manipulation with the layers is by using layer blend modes. So for example, right now the layer blend mode here is on normal, but for example, if I put this to multiply, we start to see interesting things happen. Now if I hover over the different layer transform modes, you will see different effects of the same layer. And all that's happening here is that this is just a simple algorithm. So for example, the multiply algorithm is saying, hey, wherever white is located in the current layer, so remember my current layer is this, which is the person silhouette, and anywhere there is white, so for example in these areas here, it's going to show the layer below. And that's just a simple algorithm that runs automatically. The very same way that you can use another layer overlay that, for example, says anywhere there is black, it shows the layer below, and that is using the lighten layer. And there are a couple others that we can use. The screen layer does a similar thing but slightly different based on the color. Some of the most popular layer overlays that we'll use in architecture will be screen, multiply, and overlay. So for this particular one, the screen layer perhaps will do exactly what we need. And we can see here that we didn't have to cut this object out. Instead, we just use a layer overlay to tell the layer that, hey, wherever there are black pixels, show me the layer below. Now, as simple as this technique sounds, we can use it to do some other interesting things. for example. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look on some more techniques as we go along. Now, here is the important thing, and here is the advantage of a hybrid, I guess you could say live action slash pre-recorded class, right? At any point where you don't understand a particular concept, you guys, we normally just pause and then I would expand on that concept here in class, right? So for example, the layer blending overlays, do you guys, I mean, some of you who know Photoshop would have known this already. Is there anybody here that knows this method of editing already? Can go by a thumbs up. Is so far, are these techniques new to everybody? Is that a yes or a no?
No, actually, no, sir. But I remember that one time I was playing around with Photoshop, and that's how I discovered this. I didn't really, like, nobody really told me how to do this before.
Right. And that is the thing with going into more advanced techniques. When we do basic, I would call it fundamental. So for example, when we're in DDM and stuff like that, and we're learning how to use the program, it's general across the board, right? Everybody needs to know what the interface does and that kind of stuff. But when you come to advanced techniques, everybody basically goes in their own corner. So for example, some of us might have come across a particular situation that required you to look into more advanced techniques for a specific thing. And maybe there are those of us that has never required any advanced usage of the program. So, you know, when we say advanced visualizations, it's not going to tell, we're not going to go into every single aspect of visualization that is advanced. Just, I would say, kind of like a top 10 list, the most popular. And here's the thing, guys, you guys need to, if you see something that is applicable to your mimic, you need to jot it down, write it down somewhere. Don't just say, oh yeah, we did talk about it in one of the classes, and then when it's time to execute, you're trying to find the class. Make a note, write down a keyword. Let's talk about it in class. So maybe there's something about layer masking that you say, oh hey, can I try this other thing with layer masking? Now is the time for me to help you experiment, right? Because remember, that's the whole objective of this advanced visualization assignment, right? All right, let's continue. Cool. Let's look at a lens flare. And lens flares are basically lighting effects that has been captured as images. But the interesting thing about lens flares is that you can only show them on a black background. So for example, if I wanted to show a lens flare in this image, perhaps where the sun is, there is no way that I could go ahead and start to cut this image out. So this would be the perfect application for using a layer overlay where I can change it now from normal to screen. That automatically gets rid of that automatically translate, using the algorithm, translates that anywhere there is black pixels, show me the layer below. And that's essentially what it is doing. So if I zoom out now, this lens flare looks as if it belongs in this image. Now the interesting thing with this kind of effect is that if we start to move this effect now, so I'm going to take this lens flare and start to move it outside of the picture area, you can see where the black comes into play, and that is because where there is black, it would display the layer below, but there is no layer below, so it will only show you black. So when using this method, you will have to ensure that your image is directly on top of another layer. Now another interesting thing to note is that this concept of layer blending exists for almost any 3D or 2D applications that exist on the computer. So in exploring advanced architectural visualizations, our conversation will start primarily with layering and editing. Some of the primary tools that we're going to use are going to have to do with editing images and editing vector lines. So let's start in those two locations. So right here I have a file open in Photoshop, and I also have a file that is in Illustrator. Now,
Sir,
yeah,
it's the same thing. Show it again. Hit that on a loop.
you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm asking if the video is on a loop. I look like it start over.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. Right. So what I did is that I actually have a whole bunch of these videos that kind of target specific things in architecture, and I'm going to pick and choose to go through them in the advanced computing course. All right. So let's look at a different one now. For example, if I should head over to Illustrator, Illustrator is a vector editing program. So for example, editing that I would do with pixels, I'm unable to do that with Illustrator. So for example, let's do a side-by-side comparison here, right? Now if I head over to Illustrator, which is a vector editing program, well, one of the first things I would recognize is that my tool set for editing pixels is different. So I don't really have the tool set to edit pixels. However, the same rules as it relates to... Yeah? Was that a question?
Yeah, well, like an observation. You can change but the settings so that we can see clearly, because it look blurry right now. Or it's just my internet.
Right. Well, when you're watching video, there is no other option but to watch it that way. So it's like a playback option. Is it blurry for everybody, or anybody else that sees the video really blurry?
No, sir, it's clear for me.
Yeah. So it's optimized. Right. It optimized based on your speed. All right. So let's continue. Layering and layer blending still holds true, though the application of it is a little different because the user interface is different. Now if I look on the right here, you can see where I have this the same layer, and you can see where I also have that lens flare layer on top. So if I should turn on the lens flare layer, you would see my lens flare, which it is right here, and that's my lens flare. Now to set transparency in Illustrator, that is done using the opacity panel, right? So if I head up to window where I can access my panels, and then you will see where I have my transparency panel here, and this is what it looks like. So the transparency panel allows me to do this very same thing that Photoshop allows me to do, which is I can set the opacity of the layer that's currently selected. So there I can make this transparent, or I can use a blending mode here. Now you might notice that the blending modes are quite similar, but you might in other applications you might notice that the blending modes might be different. Majority of digital applications has the multiply and screen and overlay blending modes, and those are going to be the most popular ones that we use in ArcViz. So if I check my multiply node, you'll notice the effect that it does there, right? And if I use my overlay, you will notice the effect that it does here. Now you might notice it's not quite similar, and that is a little because of how Illustrator treats blacks. Now what we can do is we will use the multiply, not the multiply, we'll use the screen. And the reason why this doesn't look so clean is because Illustrator primarily is meant for print media. Therefore it's using, if you go to file, you go to color mode, you realize it's using the CMYK color mode, and CMYK black and RGB black are actually two different values as it relates to actual RGB values. So you want to switch it over to RGB, and then notice how the blacks in that image works with the screen layer transfer mode, right? So there we go. So you realize that, so that is how we get the similar effect even though we are using Illustrator. And the same thing goes for the silhouette that we had in Photoshop. We can use the transparency panel in this case again, and we can go for the screen, and it will automatically get out all of the black automatically. All right, so we looked a little bit on layer overlays. So we're going to look a little bit now on render passes, right? This one might be a little bit more tricky to absorb, but remember that we'll have this class that we can watch back the recordings, and you have me to ask questions. All right, guys?
Right, sir.
Now, another advanced visualization technique that's used in ArchViz would be the utilization of passes, right? And these are often known as render passes. The primary concept is simply extracting different layers of the same information. So think of it as different ways of viewing the same image, and each of those layers has a different set of information that you can extract to let your image look different. So let's look at an example of passes, and they're the concept of passes really exists in two categories. You have, I would say, manual passes, which is what we're going to look on first, which is creating your own pass. And then you have automatic passes, which are generated for you, right? So let's take a look at creating our own pass, right? And this is an example of the model in SketchUp. And what we're going to do in SketchUp, the concept is we want to save out different views of the same building, but each of those views are going to be exactly the same. However, how it is displayed is going to be different. Now, the trick with you doing passes is that the camera views needs to line up 100%. This is super important, right? So think of it as layering different layers together. Each of those layers, the view has to be 100% the exact same view. The angle has to be the same. So the first thing I need to do is to set up a particular angle that I want to use. And I'm going to do this in SketchUp. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the camera tool, and I am going to find a particular camera view that I like. So I'm going to create here to create a camera. I'm going to create a camera there. And if you notice, the camera has things such as the name of the camera, the format, the height, the tilt, the roll, focal axis, and all of that information is down here. Now, this information is going to be very useful because what we're going to do is we're going to angle our camera to get the perfect view that we want. So in this case, I want to orbit this view slightly to the side, maybe like that. That looks good enough. Then while I'm in this camera, I'm going to now lock my camera view. And when I lock my camera view, it essentially saves this view, so just in case I move it by accident, I can click this little I button here, choose OK, and it will angle back to the view that I had before. Now this is very useful because remember, the concept of using passes is that we want to extract multiple images of the same model, but each of those images will have a different set of information. Now I still want to kind of modify this view a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to go to edit camera, and I'm going to normalize these settings. So this view is about 22 feet 2 7/8 inches. So I'm probably just going to average that to 28 feet. The tilt, I'm going to make that 0 because the tilt will affect the how straight these verticals are, and I want them to be 100% straight. So I'm going to put that to 0. And there is something that I need to ask you guys. Did you guys pass on the message to have both groups meet today? Or was it impossible for some persons? Guys?
No, sir.
Oh. Did you guys post it in your class group or with your rep?
Wasn't posted.
And it's costing.
So it was or wasn't?
It wasn't posted in the class WhatsApp group. Put it on the website.
Oh well, that is true. But what happened is that not everybody would maybe check the website. So could you just post that now? Because
When I laugh, I cough more. So thanks for making me cough. Thanks for making me cough.
right. So can you post that in your group now, guys? All right. Now the reason that we're doing this is, remember, ultimately, this session here would be taught by a different lecturer. So I am going to have a clash for the next advanced computing 1 session. All right. So this is the only additional extra session that I can use to kind of keep us on track. So the side effect of that is everybody would have to have come to this class. So everybody is up to speed. All right.
So if they can't come, I guess they'll just have to watch the recording then.
Right. And if they can't come, they will have to watch the recording. That is exactly so. All right. But that is the best we can do. What I'll try and do is I'll try to, the best thing is to watch the recording. And then all of us will, is going to meet again on Wednesday. And that's when it's my lecture schedule. That's when I have everybody, right? But we won't have the time to go through these videos and go through what we need to go through in the lecture session. So that's why I suggested that we have this additional class to make sure that everybody is caught up. All right. So please just post it in the group. Let everybody know. All right. All right. Let's continue. The roll is also 0. The focal length, I will leave it at 67 because this looks okay. And the aspect ratio, now this is important. I'm going to put this to about 1.78, and that's about the aspect ratio for a 16:9 image. And the width, I'm just going to kind of make up a number here. So let's make that 40 millimeters and choose OK. All right. We're going to tweak it just a little bit more. So perhaps, let's go to edit camera. Perhaps what we can do now is we are going to adjust the focal length a bit more. So let's put the focal length to maybe 30. Choose OK. There we go. And we're going to make it a little closer. So if you have an idea of how camera lenses work, the larger this number is, pretty much is the more zoom in or more telephoto your view will be. So let us try 40. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now the reason I type these numbers in is that I want to keep an eye on what these numbers are in case maybe I have another scene or at a later date I want to set up another view exactly like this view. But in order for the passes concept to work, we need to ensure that our views are 100% matched. And we're going to see how important that is as we go along. So now I'm going to lock this camera, and I am going to also save this file. Okay, so now that this is saved, now I'm going to work on creating my passes. Now, I'm going to save this view. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Export as 2D graphic. And I'm going to save this in my folder. I'm going to save it in a folder called SketchUp, called Manual Passes. And let's call this pass shaded. And if I go into my options here, I'm going to ensure to check that it is a transparent background. And I'm going to choose export. And I'm exporting that as a PNG. That way I will have the transparency in these white areas. Now I'm going to do these a couple times for different views. So for example, I'm going to go to my default tray and I'm going to change the view. So this time I'm going to try we don't want any background, so we could just go with the hidden line view. This is another good pass. Now this time when I export, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try this as a PDF file. And I'm going to call this hidden line pass. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and save a PDF and a PNG for both the shaded and the hidden line views. Alright, so this is what it looks like. I have this PNG, and if I open that PNG, this is what it looks like. And I have that PNG of the hidden line. And I also have a PNG of the shaded view. Now, additionally, I also created a PDF of the hidden line and a PDF of the shaded view. In addition, I also created an EPS version, and the EPS version is a vector file format of both the hidden line and the shaded view. So these are what you refer to as passes, right? And the reason why we call them a pass is, you know, it's like saying that I have saved out this view and it's the exact same view of the same model, but it's showing me different information. In this case, it's showing me lines, and in this case, it's showing me hidden lines. Now, the idea behind render passes is that you would open, for example, let's open the shaded and the hidden line pass, and let's take that into Photoshop. Now, when we open Photoshop, this is what we see. We have one layer that is the hidden line, and if we turn that layer off, we will see the other layer below it, right? And this is the concept behind how passes work. If I reduce the opacity of one layer, you can see slightly as the other layer shows up right behind it. Now you realize in order for this to work, these two layers will have to be aligned 100% so that the line work can be nice and sharp, right? Now there's a lot that you can use passes to achieve, and this is just an example of, you know, creating your own manual passes. And for example, in some cases, for example, if I wanted to change the to maybe fill in this section with a particular color, maybe if I use my magic wand, and I'm going to have to rasterize these layers in order for this to work. Now before I rasterize these layers, what I'm actually going to do is to create a folder, and I'm going to call this folder backup of original passes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate these, and I'm going to save them in this backup folder here and turn it off, right? The reason I do that is because I plan to rasterize these layers. And there we go. And when you rasterize a layer, you're now able to edit, and just in case I want to get back my original layers, I have a backup of them right there. Now if, for example, I wanted to maybe use my magic wand to select a particular part of this image, maybe like here, and in some cases like this is perfectly fine, but it becomes a little bit more tricky if I want to select maybe just the back of this couch. Notice all this selection kind of bleeds into other areas, and this, you know, one reason for this is, you know, because of the pixels are a bit blurry, but the additional reason is that the pixels have more color information here. Now I could use my hidden line layer to do most of the selection that is tricky. For example, if I wanted to select just this area in here, notice that my selections are much more clean because this hidden line layer gives me better contrast. So the whole concept behind passes is that I use a layer to facilitate modifying the image. No, so I may, for example, select these areas in here, and then maybe that's all I need from this layer, so I just turn it off, and when I turn on this layer, I can add an effect here. Now additionally, you can use passes to help to manipulate another layer that would have been perhaps more difficult to edit. Let's use another example. Let's say that I had this layer here, and maybe what I wanted to do is to recolor all of this section up here. Now I could use my magic wand to kind of select this layer here, and then select this layer here. Then I would kind of have this gap here to select, you know, and then I would have to try and match those layers. But instead, what I could do is, you know, I could switch to my other layer here, and then I can manipulate this layer. Maybe what I'll do is I will just use maybe this tool, the lasso tool, to select that area there, and then I will just delete it. Now the good thing about that is that because this is white, because this layer is white, it's much easier, and I could just instead of deleting it, I could really just fill it with white as well to show this example. And there we go, let's deselect that. And now I've completely edited this, and now it's much easier for me to maybe select this entire side here in order to give it a new color for this layer, which totally ignores this line here. Alright, so this is just a little example of how I could use another pass to help me achieve something based on the look and feel that I want to achieve, right? And this is the kind of manipulations that you do with render passes. The concept is that you use a pass, you generate a pass that facilitates the ability to make a certain change. In this case, an outline pass makes it easier for me to manipulate certain elements because of the nature of this layer. Some of the layer is basically just black and white. Now let's make a simple color change, but before I do the color change, I'm going to also do some more editing on this pass. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my brush tool here and let my brush be 100% sharp and let it very small. I'm using the left and right brackets to make this small, and I'm just going to kind of wipe out this line here like that. And I'm gonna just remove this line here. And remove this line here. Alright, now I could do that on this pass, but I may not be able to match back the exact color that I had here. So instead, if I try to erase this, I could try and get the right color, but it may not exactly match what I have in that area. So making those manipulations is much easier on this layer. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this area up here. Then I'm going to create a new layer, of which I'm going to fill it with a particular color. So I'm going to choose let's pick a nice kind of a maybe orange color here. I'm going to fill up there with that color. And notice that that color is on layer 1, so maybe I can call this orange. Alright, now I'm going to deselect this. I'm going to right click and deselect. Now the good thing is that even when I turn this layer on, this still remains orange because it's on a totally different layer. Now along with this, I can also use the layer overlays to get different effects. So notice that I am able to, let's try the multiply. Now in this case, let's use the overlay. I am able to show a particular graphic here, but yet still I'm still seeing the line work from a different layer before. Now that layer is still by itself here, so if I put this to normal and I turn off all the other layers, you can see that this layer is here by itself. And I can do other interesting things with this layer as well. And we're going to come back to using overlays, to using layer mask to make further edits. Now, the other thing that we want to do is we're going to look on another pass that we created. In this case, we created two passes. We created one pass that is a hidden line, and we created another one that was shaded. Now, we also extracted some PDF passes as well. And we can see them here. Now, the great thing about the PDF and the EPS pass is that we are able to open this in Illustrator. And I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to go open with Illustrator. And essentially what this is a vector pass. Because now I'm able to actually select the individual line work. And you can see that there are some minor errors with how the line work came out. Let's look at the hidden line version as well. So I'm going to open that with Illustrator. There we go. Now, because this is in Illustrator, you can see that the line work is actually very exquisite, right? Nice, clean lines, because the PDF export from SketchUp allowed the line work to come out pretty neat. Now, it's not 100% perfect, because we noticed that there are some lines missing, some line work missing from here, and in this one you can see that there are some areas that are not filled appropriately. But nevertheless, these two passes, which you could call them a vector pass, gives us the ability to now manipulate these vectors, and we can essentially combine all of them together. Now, with the ability of a vector pass, it now gives me the ability to make changes that that can be done with vector tools. And a major advantage with vector tools is, for example, being able to edit line work. Now, on the topic of line work, you might already have noticed that if I switch back to Photoshop here and you take a look, the line work here, because it has to be represented by pixels, is quite not so good. To be frank, it's quite horrible. And you know, horrible is relative, because from a certain distance it looks fine, but of course that will affect the size that you may choose to print or export or publish this image at. If it's going to be on a phone screen, then it will be fine. But if you plan to maybe show it on a large screen or print it on a large sheet of paper, these are going to show up as jagged edges. Now, on the flip side, the vector pass is nice and clean, and we can use vector tools to make manipulations which we could not do if we were to use pixel tools. So, for example, one advantage of using vector tools is we can, for example, select all of these lines up here. So if I should use my lasso selection tool and select pretty much all of these lines up here, I could make these lines, if I head over to my stroke, I could make these lines dash lines, for example. and I could make them even red dash lines with a particular thickness. There we go. By the click of a button, because these are really just line work. That's all they really are. And because they're line work, I can do other manipulations with them as well. For example, if I wanted to maybe carve a section out of this wall here, I mean, I could just use the eraser tool, and let's increase the size of that. And using the eraser tool, it immediately split these lines here, and using my direct selection tool, these are actual line work that I can further manipulate. So I could maybe manipulate this edge here to do that, and then carry this edge here to do that. So it's a lot easier to manipulate lines if we are using this vector tool. Now the great news is that we can combine all of these passes into one software. So for example, I can now save this, and I will save this particular render pass as SketchUp render pass hidden line, and I will choose save there. And I'm actually going to save this as a Illustrator file instead of a PDF. So let's do that again. So I'm going to save that as an Illustrator file. It's going to ask me what year of Illustrator do I want to save. I'm just going to choose. I will leave everything as default and save there. Now back in Photoshop, I can actually go to File and go to Place Linked. And I can go to that folder and look for that pass, that render pass, and actually just place that onto my board. And the great thing is that it should be the same size. There we go. Now we don't want to change the ratio of it. So we're just sizing, we're not skewing it, we're just scaling it up or down to match. There we go. Alright. And then what we have done was just included the vector pass directly in Photoshop. Now ideally, when you are combining passes I would use Illustrator as my output. So rather than taking Illustrator into Photoshop, I would rather take Photoshop into Illustrator. So let's look at that as well. So what I can do is go to File, and I can go to Save, and I'm going to save this as a PSD file. So I'm going to call this Manual Render Pass PSD. And then I'm going to go to Place in Illustrator, and I'm going to place that Manual Render Pass PSD file. Alright, I'm gonna just resize it. I'm holding Shift because I want to make sure that it is the exact size. Alright. And I'm also going to put that on a layer. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it PSD Render Pass. And I'm going to move it to that layer. So that way I can put it behind. So what we have here is kind of the best of both worlds. So for example, we can now as you may have noticed, because we have a vector pass now in Illustrator, there is no need to rely on the line work coming from Photoshop, because we can see that the line work from Photoshop is actually quite, well, not so good. If I turn off the Photoshop render pass, you'll see that that line work is definitely not needed. In addition to that, the resolution of that Photoshop file is a bit low. That's why we're getting this jagged line work here. So one solution we could do to that is, let's go back into Photoshop, and well, what we're going to do is we don't need to use the hidden line render pass anymore, because we got better line work coming from the vector pass. So what we can do is we're going to go back into SketchUp. Now that we have the vector pass, we can get some more interesting manual pixel passes from SketchUp. So if we head back over to SketchUp, what we can do is, let's try and mix things up with a section and combine that with the vector pass. Now in SketchUp, we save the camera view like this. Now currently we can see that this camera view that we have here is locked, which is a good thing. So if we end up moving our view, so if we, for example, took another view like that, we can click back this I button here, and it says, we can select the camera that we want to go to, and it goes back to that view. So that way we can always have our view the exact way as how we would like it, so that we can continue our compositing with the render passes. Now one thing to note is that the views are very similar, are the same thing as scenes. So let me open up my tray here, and let's minimize everything, and let's expand scenes. And what you should notice is that these views here is the same as the scene that we have here. Now, scenes basically saves everything that you see in your viewport, and when you choose back this scene, it will set back all settings, all render styles to exactly how it was when you first captured the scene. So currently we want to create a new scene that is a section, and one that also has a different look and feel. Now, to do that, what we're going to do is first set up, let us set up our section view. And what I can do is just kind of orbit my view away, and then I'm going to hit the section tool, which is located here, and let us cut a section like this. There we go. I'm going to choose OK. Let's move this section into place. So we're going to use the move tool and probably put the section like that. That's good enough. Now, interestingly, when we go back to this view or this scene by double clicking, what you will notice is that the section is now gone. And the section cut is still there. You can kind of see it, you know, because you can kind of see this line that's going across here. But what's happened is that this view that we have here is pretty much capturing all the visual settings that we had set, including section cuts, in SketchUp. So that means that when we had captured this camera view, we did not have a section cut, which is why the section cut is disabled. Now, what we're going to do is set up everything that we want to have with this exact view, and then we're going to save that as a new camera or a new scene. They're the same thing. Alright, so let's head over to styles, and we're going to change our style. So we're going to customize it. So we're going to go to edit, and then let's go to edges, and we're going to say we don't want to see the profiles and we don't want to see the edges. That's fine. Let's head over to materials, and if we expand our materials settings with that little icon there, you will see that we have the ability to show all the materials that are currently in the model. Right, so let's expand that down. So what we're seeing here are all the materials that are currently in the model. Now, what we can do is we can actually use our pipette tool, which is that tool right there, and we can take a sample, let's say, of this material here, and it's showing me that that material there is equal to this material. And what we can do is go to edit, and let's just change the color slightly. Let's make it a little lighter. There we go. Let's take a little color out of it. Yeah. Alright. Okay, let's go back to styles and continue to customize these styles. So we just want to show shaded mode. Alright, we do want to show transparency, and over in modeling settings, let's see, we want to show the section fills. Also, we can kind of see that section cut in the background here. So if we click on it, let's make this section active. So we can see that the color here corresponds with that color there, and also the section line cut corresponds with the lines whenever we deselect the section. So for example, if I click over here, you will see that that is the color of the section lines, and this is the color of the fills there. So what we want to do is we want to let's take the thickness down to 1. Then let us change the section fills to maybe, let's say, an orange color. And we can let the section cut line stay as red for now, that's fine. And all of these settings that we have just changed, the section cuts and the view and activating the section line, we're going to save all of that as another scene or another camera, right? So this up here is the same thing as the scenes down here. Now we don't want to click this scene here, or else everything is just going to go back as how it was. So we're going to just click the new scene, and we're going to say save as new style and create that scene. There we go. And now this scene is scene 2, and you can kind of see the preview that this looks like scene 2. And if we should click back scene 1, double click it, then that is scene 1, exactly as how it was before, right? Now notice that the material color is not part of the scenes, so that remains consistent. So let's choose back scene 2 by double clicking. And that is scene 2, so it saves the scene exactly as how it was. Now what we want to do is go to File, and then we want to go to Export, and we're going to export that 3D model. Not the 3D model. We're going to export the 2D graphic, and we're going to save it in the same folder, in our manual passes folder, and we're going to save this as, we're going to save it as a PNG, right? And we want to save this as section shaded. Let's go in options and make sure that we have this on transparent, and then we're also going to uncheck this icon here and set our image size to like about 4,000, something that's pretty big. Now we're going to save this file, and we're going to save that as a PSD file, because we want to keep all of the Photoshop editing capabilities, and we're going to name it as shaded with shadows. That's fine. And then we're going to head over to Illustrator, and we're going to go to Place, and we're going to place that PSD that says shaded with shadows. Now we can just actually attach it to the top left corner, and we can just scale this, and it doesn't matter the proportion, because as long as we snap it to the image, it will line up 100% with the vector image, as you can see here. Now it might look a little weird because we do need to put this on a layer, so we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to call that layer shaded with shadows. And we're going to right click and assign to that layer. We're going to put that layer behind our vector layer. Now right away you can see that this has exactly lined up, and we can start to see the difference with using line work that is coming as pixels versus line work that is coming as vector, right? However, depending on the size that you're going to produce at, that will determine if that is okay or not. So now we have two layers. We have the shaded with shadows layer that is really attached to a Photoshop file, and then we also have our original vector pass. Let's call that hidden line vector pass. So if we turn off the vector pass there, we can see just the shaded with shadow, and if we turn off the shaded with shadow, we can see the vector pass. Now, one of the reasons that we chose to link the Photoshop PSD file is that we may choose to go back to edit that Photoshop file. So by editing this file here, it will automatically update the Illustrator file, and the Illustrator will be our output. If we were going to print, we would have printed from Illustrator, and if we were going to publish to the web, we would publish from Illustrator. Now the reason we choose Illustrator to publish is because Illustrator is resolution independent, which means that it doesn't matter what you output this media to, these lines will always be 100% sharp, whereas the lines coming in from Photoshop is based on a specific size, a specific number of pixels, which is why it is finite. So it's a good idea to, especially for architecture, whenever you get the chance, you publish your work from a vector-based program. All right, guys. So that is some additional tips there. Now, is there anybody here that learned any new techniques from what we just watched?
So there's two.
Right. So is there anybody that learned any new techniques?
Yeah, well, I have to watch it over because I not really get to practice. I don't know better when I practice it. So I just watch it and practice. I practice, I haven't catch it still, so I know. Just
Right.
watch it.
Right, right. Good point. What I'm hoping for is that, as I said, not everything that we do in the advanced usage of these programs would apply to the Mimic necessarily. It's just, you might spot something that say, oh, I think that would be useful in my Mimic. And then you can investigate further using the video as a guide. Now, I don't expect you guys to, this is not an exercise for you guys to now go and do what you see in the video. What it is it's really just me showing you some of the most popular advanced techniques the foundation for them, and it's up to you to take what you can from it. All right. So I say again, I don't want to see anybody take the model and and doing exactly what is done in the video. It's not an exercise. All right, guys. It's just for your reference, so it can help you in your investigation of developing new techniques. All right. All right. So I think that's as much as we will do today. All right. As I said, I'm going to try as much as possible to kind of front load the module with some of these tips. And then next week we will go into the execution part of this, right? I'm really hoping that going into the weekend, from midweek on Wednesday, that your brains would be like loaded up of all these possibilities, and you can use the rest of the week and the weekend to kind of explore. And if you're exploring something and it's about, I don't know, like about layering or overlays, and you say, oh yes, I remember sir said something about overlays, and you go back to the video and you look and you learn something new and try something else. That's the whole objective for this assignment. All right. Okay, so that is our class for today. As soon as this is done, I'll encode it and you guys know where to find the recording. All right?
All right, sir.
All right. Well, that's been me today. Take care, and I'll see you guys again on Wednesday. All right?
All right.
Sir, those who mind the tips, right?
Say again?
Those are the tips.
Right. I have it. Give me a second there. I have it up here. There we go.
Also, the flow. So,
Say again?
the flow.
The flow?
Workflow. I also did that above.
No, say again. You say, what about the workflow?
I put the workflow above, right above the name or beside the name.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Well, what I was gonna do is copy the workflow from your presentation and put here. So you're supposed to keep this in your. Oh, this was the one I was doing as an example. I just remember. Right.
No, that's me.
Oh, this was the. Oh, so this is your version, right? So you're supposed to keep this in your mirror board, right? And pretty much after the presentation, I may paste the workflow. I'm going to paste the workflows that you guys did in these slots.
Which mirror board is that? Do we have a
Your personal mirror board.
As in this program or?
In meaning you sign up for mirror board for yourself, where you keep.
All right, sir. Look more.
Yes, no problem.
Okay.
Sorry, you can check on the mirror board and tell me if.
Right, before you guys go, let me just verify those of you who don't have a verified. Okay, all right, this is fine. I'll just let that go. Well, what is it that you want to show from this one here? Oh, sorry, you're not seeing what I'm seeing.
The exploding, I want to be able to show like a specific call out. similar to how they do theirs here.
Okay. Why does this look so pale? The mirror board looks. The mirror board, it's looking a bit weird. Anyway, all right. It looks like it's pale or something, or muted.
Nothing on my screen, it looks okay, looks fine.
It's probably has something to do with the flow, the zoom or something. You're right. So in this one, so you are, so what is it that you're taking from the communication objective here?
All right, so I'm supposed to call up a specific element, right? So like how we have highlighted the skin of the building.
Right. Okay.
So for my element, for my exploded are what call it, transparent.
Uh-huh.
So X-ray exploded, then I would want to do something similar.
So you would be like showing the skin of the building while it's exploded. Right? You there? Probably the internet. In the meantime, yeah, Jessica.
Hi, sir. I was asking if you could just double check on my section because I realized you haven't approved it or not.
Yes, no problem. What was the story with is Campbell here? Yes. Campbell,
Yes, sir.
which one of these you wanted to use?
The communication is the second one, sir.
Right. Oh, right. Because you're highlighting the structural members.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. All right. Cool.
And I
Cool.
also registered for the class. If you're not seeing it, you know.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'll check on it. Okay. All right. All right. I'm just working my way down and around. Hold on. Where's the image here? Not seeing that one. I think it was there. Okay. That is good. That is good. Some persons still don't have all their images yet. Oh boy. Koan is here. Koan, what was it you wanted to do for this one? I'm going to close my mirror board and open it back because it's doing some madness. Yeah, which one you wanted to use?
So you were asking what I wanted to do from a final on the exploded one?
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to show the building's floor plan and the layout while it was being popped up.
Okay. Something is wrong with. I'm going to use mirror board in my browser because I'm not able to see it properly. Oh, brother. Right. There it goes. It's normal now. Okay. All right. Yes. I'm back to come on. Right. So which one?
Sir, I'm the one beside it, not this one.
Oh no. What?
I'm Kukoran. That's Koan, yeah.
All right. Okay. Kukarn, your own is okay. You just need or is this one what are you doing for your communication objective? Is it the vertical circulation thing?
Sir, you're speaking to me or the person for this one?
Oh, sorry. No, because it says the one next to you, but I just realized.
Okay.
Oh, Lordy. All right. All right. Before I come to you, let me just head down to Jessica. Here.
So check Townsend plan.
Yeah, Jessica, you're all right, cool. That's good. This is interesting. You got some interesting colorful line work here. I'm thinking of some ideas, but we'll talk about it. And this one here, okay, this is fine. Ooh, I like this plan. I can't wait to see you do it, Jessica.
Us both, sir.
All right, cool. So you are good to go then. Then go on. I see you here with your hands up.
Yes, sir. You were asking about my X-ray.
Yeah. Yeah. Which one of these?
Oh, the one on the right.
That's this one?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. I think what would be a good idea is to those who have the full 100 green light to give them a green background. So, Con, you still have your communication objective, or is it in this image?
Yeah. That one is in the image with the lighting.
Ah, okay, cool. I wanted to hear it from your mouth.
Yeah, man, sir.
All right, cool. Green light for you. All right. Kira, you need to choose all of your communication objectives. All right. Green light for Campbell. Green light. Who was the next person? Jessica, is that an old hand?
Townsend.
Or did I answer your question?
It's an old answer, sorry.
All right. Who was the other person? Graham, what's happening?
Sir, Lorenzo was before me, but I just wanted you to look at my floor plans. You hadn't given me the okay on those.
Okay. Lorenzo, what's happening?
Check the plan, sir.
So we're going to T Townsend. Oh, you're down the bottom here. Where are you, Lorenzo? Down here? Yeah. Okay, lovely. You're good to go. Interesting plan. I see a few people that choose this one, so it'll be interesting to compare the different methods that you use. This one is also good to go. All right, Lorenzo, green light.
So check my check here what you want.
You want? one. You are somewhere here. Yeah, here we go. All right. I think, I mean, you're really highlighting the terrain here. I don't think we didn't give a communication objective for terrain. So what is it that you highlighted here, Johan?
Sir, the terrain, yes.
Yeah, but there is no communication objective for terrain. I believe I have pedestrian, active and passive ventilation, and there was one more, but there was no terrain. So you are making up my assignment for me, sir. So you need to choose a communication objective for that.
All right.
This is Graham.
Yes, sir.
Boy, Graham, the borderline too simple, you know.
Okay, so I need to change it.
Well, wait. Is it, I mean, you know, what about this? Is this a technique that you want to master? What is it in this technique that you want to master, or you just want to change it?
It was just how they differentiated each thing like outside from inside without adding color. I just didn't want to use color.
Okay, I get you. Okay, I mean, then what you would have to do, you'd have to give me, like, it's almost like you could use this as your communication objective and your image to mimic.
Okay.
Oh, but you like the outside of this texture?
Yeah,
kind of?
yes.
I see. This is an interesting one because your technique, I mean, these two techniques are pretty much the same.
I just liked how they showed they communicated the pedestrian thingy on the second one, the circulation on the second floor plan.
Yeah, this is fine. This is good to go. I agree with what you're saying for the context. The context is interesting, but the floor plans are just blah. You know what I mean?
So I would say two?
Well, these floor plans are already blah as well.
Okay.
I mean, right. So you need some kind of interesting floor plan. So I don't know if you would manage to find that floor plan. Like maybe you really love this context, so I would say keep this image.
Mm-hmm.
And just in case you can't find one that has the context that you like, but with a floor plan that has a bit more detail in it.
Okay,
right?
I'll look for one now.
All right, sounds good. Who else? All of these should be
Sir. Can you look at Nicole Shaw, please?
Shaw, no problem. Shaw, okay. But Shaw ain't not done yet.
So
but
just a floor plan.
Far, okay, I know that we're doing that first, so you want to make sure that you're in the green.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, this looks good. It's borderline simple. It's like almost borderline, but it has a little bit of shadow and depth. I'm going to be looking forward to your arrows. All right. And I'm really loving this section. This section is really interesting. Notice the paper background, right? I noticed that this is a 1-point perspective and there is some soft shadowing going on here. And then everything is kind of monochrome with the greens that's popping. So I'm going to be looking forward to your sections. Hey, I guess you really like these kind of arrows, huh? Because you chose it for both your plan and your section.
Yes, sir. All
right. But yeah, I love this section as well. I can't wait till you tell me how you got it. But remember, if you need some help in how you achieve this, as a matter of fact, some of the tips that I have in the videos can be used for this. Yeah, so this is like an overlay with this person that's here, and these are cutouts that's here. What's tricky about this is that you have some nice soft shadows here. It's like it's almost photorealistic. So SketchUp is not going to give you these shadows. You're going to have to grab that from another program. All right. I'm going to try and, because what I do, I look on these things when I'm creating those videos and kind of summarize the major things that I notice amongst them. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So you have all green lights for the first two. What's happening with the other images?
Still deciding, sir. I'm trying to keep on theme.
All right. As long as we keep moving, right? I want everybody to be good to go for this week, and I need you guys to build your confidence level in how you're going to achieve some of these mimics. So on Wednesday we can talk a little bit about that. Because some of them, for example, like this one here, yes, it has raster, but this one has soft shadows. It definitely has soft shadows, right? So it has 3D features. It has raster diagramming elements, 2D related features, yeah, because you can see these 2D things on the outline that's there. But it has soft shadows. So we're going for some of you guys, we're going to talk about some of these things. I hope I can get to everybody by next week. All right, are there any other questions regarding any other anybody else that's not sure?
Yes, sir. Check Donald's own.
That's good. Donald? Hold on, Donald's last name?
Ricketts. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Very interesting plan. All right, and I'm loving this. This is really cool. Texture and 3D related sketchy line work. I guess yes, it does have sketchy line work. I guess I would more call that texture. Oh yeah, you do have texture, so that's good. Yeah, 3D related features, that's good. Yeah, so you realize this is like photorealistic, so definitely. Did I have a photorealistic? Let me take this first. So that is good, and this one is really nice. There we go. I'm trying to remember what I have here. 2D, 3D related features. Soft shadows are here, right? So y'all need to start using up the soft shadows version. So for example, well, I don't see anything here. I was just on Ricketts' plan a while ago. So Ricketts, can you see the soft shadows? You see them?
Yes, they're there. Yeah, they're there.
Right. So you want to highlight that as well, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, I'm seeing some really interesting styles here. I've always liked this one. This one, 2.5D. Nah, this is 3D. Not 2.5D. So we're going to what we're going to do is on Wednesday we will kind of have I'll try to go through all of these Just the ones that you need to prepare for next week, though. And I'll look on these things and start to um, recommend some things for you guys regarding how you achieve this. Yeah.
Good afternoon. You can look at my section and tell me if it can work. Simpson.
Okay, Simpsons S. Yeah, this is good to go. And
No, sir, the section, not the plan. Okay, I just seen it now. Thank you.
yeah, man, it's there. It's there. So I guess you're highlighting the light with the yellow, and that is going to be inside of this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, pretty cool. Remember that for the coming class, for us to have a conversation, you need to have identified the major elements that is in your image, right? So you're going to have to pick these out. So when I'm going through and I reach to yours for us to have a conversation, I need you to have already picked these out. And we will do that for the
Sir, when
plan.
you say I must pick those out, what you mean? Like I should narrow them down even further? Because I saw all of those in the image when I did it last week.
Right, so
I didn't have it for the section because I never knew if it was approved or not.
I got you, which you just approved. Yeah, man. Okay, so you're going to do these for the section as well, right?
Okay.
This is interesting. For yours, you maybe should put 2 textures, you know? I'm just messing.
All right.
All right, so yeah, so we'll talk about these on Wednesday. All right, guys?
So, sir, how does my board look? Do I have any more pictures outstanding?
No, man, you're good. You are good. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, man, you have the green light. You're ready to fly. So we'll discuss these things. Extra line work. So for you, you can have 2 line works because it's all about the line work in this, man.
I wasn't finished with those, so I'll finish it up this evening.
Yeah, man. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna also post this video. There are some elements already. Most of these that I have looked on, I see where you can reuse a lot of the stuff. A lot of techniques you can kind of get from SketchUp and a combination of maybe some Illustrator, some Photoshop. Some of you may have to go into like a Twinmotion or Lumion to get like once you see soft shadows, once you have highlighted that your scene contains soft shadows, well, the only way to get soft shadows is either you're going to draw it on yourself digitally in Photoshop, or you're going to go in a rendering program like Lumion, Twinmotion, 3ds Max to generate those soft shadows. All right. But I have some tips, like even for this one here, I have some tips that will help out for those of you that's doing that. This one as well. And yeah. Stuff is looking nice. All right, so we'll talk again on Wednesday, guys. Take care.
Yes, sir. You too.
Okay, sir. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sir.